They weren't born lucky. They were built from struggle, from street fights and eviction notices, to Oscars, Grammys, and global fame. These are the untold stories of dreamers who started with nothing and turned every failure into fuel, because impossible was just another word they refused to believe in. He sold his dog for $40 and bought it back for $15,000. In the 1970s New York, Sylvester Stallone was a struggling actor, broke, unknown, and nearly homeless. His only companion, a bull mastiff named Butkus. Stallone had no job, no food, not even rent money. He couldn't feed himself, let alone Butkus. So, in total desperation, he sold his best friend for $40 outside a liquor store. He cried as he walked away. Months later, the Rocky script was finally picked up, and with the first money he earned, Stallone did the one thing his heart needed most. He tracked down the man who bought Butkus. Sensing Stallone's desperation and knowing what the dog meant to him, the man demanded $15,000 to give Butkus back. Stallone paid it in heartbeat. He gave him a role in Rocky, immortalizing their bond forever. He fought for his dream and bought back his heart. He didn't just rap to be heard, he rapped to survive. This is Eminem's story. Before the fame, before the Grammys, there was just Marshall Mathers, a kid from Detroit who had nothing but a notebook and anger that rhymed. He grew up in poverty, raised by a single mom, switching schools constantly, getting bullied for being different. At 14, he found his voice in rap battles, not in fancy studios, but in basements and parking lots where words were his only weapon. He got booed off stage, rejected by labels, and told rap wasn't for him. But he kept writing every night, turning pain into poetry and struggle into sound. Then Dr. Dre heard his demo, and that broke the cycle. From sleeping on floors to selling over 200 million records, Eminem proved that talent means nothing without grind. He once said, "You can do anything you set your mind to, man." From the trailer park to the top of the charts, Eminem proved it's not where you start, it's how hard you hit back. Now go write your own verse in this world. He lost his best friend, his baby, and the love of his life. Yet somehow, he never lost his soul. Keanu grew up moving from city to city, raised by a single mom, never staying in one place long enough to belong. Struggling with dyslexia, he dropped out of school and felt invisible, but he never stopped dreaming. Acting became his way out, his escape from the noise. With nothing but grit and a worn-out suitcase, he chased auditions, slept on friends' couches, drove a junk car that barely ran, and survived on small TV roles just to get by. Then came Speed, his breakthrough that turned years of rejection into overnight success. But fame never changed him. After The Matrix made him a multi-millionaire, Keanu gave away $75 million to the film crew, the people who made him shine. He's faced pain, loss, and loneliness, yet still chooses humility every time. Because in a world obsessed with fame, Keanu Reeves proves kindness never goes out of style. His parents tried to sell him for $26, but life has other plans. Jackie Chan was born into extreme poverty, so desperate that $26 felt like a way out. His parents eventually kept him, but the struggle didn't end. He was sent to opera school, brutal training, insane discipline, and punishment-level routines that would break most kids. That school forged a monster-level work ethic long before Hollywood ever heard his name. His early stunt career paid almost nothing. He broke bones like it was a subscription, skull fracture, cracked pelvis, shattered ankles. But he refused to quit. He kept pushing until he reinvented action comedy and built his legacy one insane stunt at a time. Now he's worth over $400 million and beloved worldwide. He wasn't protected, privileged, or handed anything. He crawled out from the bottom and turned pain into power. Because legends are made by persistence, not circumstance. From homeless in Manila to a global boxing legend, he grew up in poverty, selling bread and donuts on the streets of General Santos, barefoot, hungry, and fighting just to survive. At 14, Manny Pacquiao left home on a ship to Manila with no money, no family, and no guarantees, only a dream to box his way out of struggle. He fought for 100 pesos a match, barely enough to buy rice, but every punch he threw carried a lifetime of hunger and hope. People said he was too skinny, too small, too poor, but he trained harder, fought tougher, and climbed higher than anyone thought possible. From sleeping in the streets to standing in sold-out arenas, he became the only boxer in history to win world titles in 8 different weight divisions. But beyond the belts and glory, he never forgot the kid who had nothing. He was counted out more times than he can remember, but every fall became fuel. Because true champions aren't made in the ring, they're forged in struggle. He was told his accent was a joke. Now it's the most copied voice in action history. Arnold Schwarzenegger grew up in a tiny Austrian village, in a household where even dreaming big felt impossible. But at 15, bodybuilding became his escape, his obsession. While everyone else lived inside limits, Arnold trained like every rep was building a future no one believed he could have. He moved to America with almost nothing, worked construction just to survive, struggled in English, and Hollywood executives laughed at him. They said his accent was ridiculous. His name was too long. He would never make it in movies, but he weaponized both, and they became the very reason the world never forgot him. He became Mr. Olympia, then became one of the most iconic action stars of all time, not because he fit the mold, but because he broke it. Follow for more legends who prove impossible is just a word for quitters.
I wrote myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered.
Long before manifestation became a trend, Jim Carrey proved it works. He was just a kid from Canada. His family so poor, they once lived in a van parked beside a factory. Jim worked nights as a janitor, scrubbing floors while dreaming of making people laugh. But life didn't laugh back, not yet. Hollywood rejected him over and over. Still, he refused to let reality decide his future. One night in 1985, he drove up to Mulholland Drive, stared at the city lights, and wrote himself a check for $10 million. He kept that check in his wallet until it nearly fell apart. Then, almost exactly 10 years later, Dumb and Dumber hit theaters, and his paycheck, $10 million. Jim once said, "Believe first. Work like it's already yours, because one day, what you believe will become what you live." If that hit you, tap like. And remember, every legend starts broke, but never stays that way. He was treated like a meme until he turned memes into millions. Post Malone didn't look like a serious artist. Industry laughed at him, fans clowned him, and labels didn't know where to put him. He was too weird for pop, too soft for rap, too left field for rock. But he didn't bend to fit categories. He blended all of them. He wrote obsessively, built his own sound, and dropped White Iverson, the song nobody took seriously, until it detonated and forced the world to take him seriously. Now he's one of the biggest artists on earth, proof that being unapologetically you beats every blueprint they tried to force on you. He hit rock bottom with $7 and built an empire on it. At 23, Dwayne Johnson dreamed of the NFL after playing for the University of Miami. But 2 months into a Canadian team, he got cut, and his football dream was over. He flew home broke, defeated, with only $7 in his pocket. With no backup plan, he turned to the one thing that still ran in his blood: wrestling. It was his family's legacy, but this time, it became his lifeline. Trained by his father, he stepped into the ring, and fans booed him. They yelled, "Rocky sucks!" But he didn't quit. He outworked everyone, evolved, and became The Rock, the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. Those $7, they became $7 Productions, the company behind his billion-dollar success. The Rock built his empire from rock bottom. Remember, rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation you rise from. Follow for more stories of legends who started with nothing and built everything. He didn't have the voice people wanted. He had the voice people laughed at. Ed Sheeran grew up bullied, stuttering, and struggling to even speak fluently. Teachers doubted him, classmates mocked him, and his dream felt impossible for a ginger kid with a guitar and zero confidence. But Ed refused to break. He wrote every day, performed everywhere, slept on couches, subways, random floors, and sang in tiny pubs for spare change. Because he knew quitting meant going back to being invisible, he kept dropping EPs independently until one tape reached Eminem, the guy who believed in underdogs. Suddenly, the kid who struggled to talk became one of the most streamed voices on earth. Now he sells out stadiums, has diamond records, Grammys, and a catalog worth tens of millions, built out of pure obsession, not privilege, because sometimes the world that once laughed at you ends up singing your songs. She was literally born in prison. Yes, the girl the world knows as the rich, cold Upper East Side queen started life behind bars. Leighton Meester grew up broke, bounced from cheap rentals, couch to couch, ate whatever they could afford, and her mom struggled so bad she once shoplifted groceries just so they could eat dinner that night. Every day felt like survival mode, not childhood. She learned early how fast life can flip from barely getting by to nothing left at all. So imagine the cosmic irony. The role that made her globally famous was Blair Waldorf, the wealthy girl with unlimited privilege, the life every teenager wanted, the life she never had. Leighton didn't rise because the world handed her a path. She fought tooth and nail to build one, because some people aren't born into destiny, they drag themselves out of the fire and force the world to finally see who they really are. Follow for more real legends who rewrote their story. From broken beginnings to legendary winnings, Cristiano Ronaldo wasn't born into football royalty. He was born into hardship. A tiny island in Madeira, a family struggling just to get by, and a kid who was mocked for dreaming far beyond what life told him he was allowed to dream. At 14, doctors had to fix his heart with laser surgery, just so he could keep playing the sport he loved. Most would have quit. Ronaldo doubled down. Every setback became fuel. Every doubt became pressure he converted into power. Every insult became another reason to go harder than yesterday. He trained like the future he wanted already existed, and the world just needed time to realize it. That kid from nothing became the most followed human alive, the highest paid football star on earth, and one of the very few athletes in history to hit billionaire status while still active. This is what happens when belief becomes obsession, and obsession becomes destiny. Follow for more real legends who rose from impossible odds.